Yo, what's really going on in Atlanta right now has the whole rap game on edge. You ever feel that chill when the truth starts leaking out slowly, like somebody been holding a secret so big, it could flip an entire empire upside down? Well, that's exactly what's happening tonight. The streets are buzzing, fans are in shock, and Young Thug's camp is in pure chaos. After what? Insiders are calling one of the biggest betrayals in modern hip-hop history, according to a leaked FBI memo that mysteriously hit the dark corners of Reddit just hours ago. The man behind Thug's most dangerous legal storm may not be who anybody expected. We're not talking about some distant enemy, not a rival crew, not even a snitch from the outside. This name, it's someone inside the circle. Someone Thug trusted like blood. Phones started ringing. Private group chats started leaking. And fans swear they saw a black SUV outside a Buckhead mansion just minutes after the news broke. Social media exploded with wild theories, some pointing fingers, others begging for answers. And now, the question everybody's asking is, who flipped on Young Thug? And why now? Stay locked in, because what I'm about to tell you next will make everything you thought you knew about YSL look different. Atlanta had seen drama before, but this night felt different. It was like the air itself was heavy, thick with rumors, secrets, and betrayal. Ever since that supposed FBI memo started making rounds, everything around Young Thug's circle had shifted. People who used to laugh together weren't even making eye contact. Close friends stopped pulling up to the studio. Security doubled up outside certain houses. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a storm forming in real time. The streets said the FBI knew who the inside man was. But before the name even dropped, tension had already ripped through, while like a crack in glass. Someone had been whispering for months. Someone had fed information only a person deep inside the family could know. Fans flooded Instagram lives, blogs were on fire, and every big hip-hop page had one burning question in their captions. Who betrayed Thug? Backstage at a private recording spot, the mood was nothing like the usual wild energy. No loud beats, no laughter. No crowd of people trying to get selfies, just whispers and side-eyes. Ghana's old manager was pacing the hallway, looking like he'd just seen a ghost. "This ain't adding up," he muttered under his breath. Nearby, Duke leaned against the wall, jaw clenched. "Nah, bro," he said quietly. "Somebody talking. I can feel it." Inside the studio, Thug sat in a big black chair, quiet. His phone buzzed over and over, but he didn't touch it. He just stared ahead. To him, silence was louder than anything right now. People around him knew better than to speak when Thug was thinking. Then came the message. A text from a private number. Only 6 words. They know who's been talking. Those 6 words were like lighting a match near gasoline. A young producer checked his phone and tried to hide the panic in his eyes. A security guy shifted uncomfortably. Even though nobody said it out loud, they all had names in their heads. People they trusted but now started to doubt. And in a crew where loyalty was everything. Doubt was poison. 2 hours later, the first rumor started to leak. It wasn't from a blog. It wasn't from a lawyer. It was from someone inside the circle who couldn't hold it anymore. A quiet voice note, sent to a friend, accidentally forwarded, then shared. In the voice note, you could hear someone whisper, "It's someone close. Real close. Like family close." Fans were already spinning wild theories. Some blamed old beef. Others swore it had to be a money issue. But the wildest theory, the one nobody wanted to believe, was that the person behind this was the same person who had stood next to Thug at shows, at family dinners, in private jets a few blocks away. In a parking lot behind a low-key restaurant, 2 people met in the dark. It was Lil Meech and a guy from Thug's security team. Their voices were low, almost like they were scared someone might be listening. They sang they got evidence, Meech whispered. Evidence of what? The security guy replied, arms crossed. Of someone feeding them info, like straight from the top. Recordings, messages, the whole nine. Bro, this ain't rumors no more. The security guy shook his head slowly. Whoever did this, they better pray Thug don't find out first. Meanwhile, back in the studio, Thug finally spoke. His voice was calm but cold, like someone who had already made up his mind. If somebody in here been talking, he said, looking around the room, I'm gonna find out. And when I do, it's done. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed too loud. Outside, black SUVs started pulling up one by one. More people from the circle. Everyone wanted to know the truth, but nobody wanted to be the one to say the wrong thing. The energy shifted again when a lawyer walked in. Not just any lawyer. The one Thug only called when things were serious. The lawyer sat next to Thug, leaned in, and whispered something. Thug didn't flinch, didn't nod, didn't blink. But everyone around saw the way his grip tightened on the armrest. An hour later, screenshots started spreading like wildfire on social media. Blurry, but clear enough. Alleged text messages between someone in Thug's camp and a contact saved as Agent W.O. The texts were short, direct, about studio sessions, about movements, about who was where and when. A fan page posted the screenshots with the caption, "Somebody's snitching. And it ain't no outsider." People flooded the comments. This can't be real. No way. If this true, it's over. Thug don't deserve this. What made everything worse was the name that started getting whispered behind closed doors. A name that nobody thought they'd ever hear in this context. A name that made even Thug's most loyal people second-guess everything. That night, Thug called a private meeting at a house only a handful of people knew about. No phones allowed. No cameras. No outsiders. Just a small circle that he had trusted for years. The energy inside that house was thick. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was even making small talk. Somebody been playing both sides, Thug said slowly. And we not leaving this house until I know who. One by one, people started talking, defending themselves, pointing fingers, saying they didn't know anything. Some were calm, some were shaking, some were straight up crying. The accusations bounced around like bullets in a closed room. Duke slammed his hand on the table. Nah, bro. This ain't right. This family, it's YSL. If somebody in here did that, they gotta stand on it. A young engineer stood up, his voice trembling. I didn't say nothing. I swear to God. I swear to God. But Thug wasn't looking at him. His eyes were locked on someone else. Someone sitting in the corner. Someone who hadn't said a word since the meeting started. The silence grew colder. Outside, fans had no idea this was happening. Inside, it felt like a movie scene right before the plot twist. That's when Thug leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. Tell me why they got messages from your phone. Gasps filled the room. Chairs creaked as people turned. The person in the corner froze. Their eyes widened, hands gripping their knees. They opened their mouth, but no words came out. Someone whispered, "No way. It can't be him." And just like that, the trust that once held the crew together started to splinter. Before anyone could react, the sound of a phone buzzing broke the silence. It wasn't just any phone. It was Thug's. The lawyer picked it up, glanced at the screen, and his expression changed. They just moved up the court date. He said the timing was too perfect. To clean. Like somebody had tipped off the feds about the meeting. Outside, helicopters were already in the air. Fans were already tweeting. And the man in the corner? He finally whispered. It wasn't supposed to go like this. But by then, it was too late. The storm had officially begun, and the line between family and enemy was blurred beyond recognition, as the room erupted in shouting, accusations, and raw emotion. Thug just sat back in silence, watching the faces he once trusted fall apart. The room was shaking, not from noise outside, but from the weight of what had just been said. Everyone in that house knew what those words meant. It wasn't supposed to go like this. That was not something you say when you're innocent. It was something you say when the plan has gone too far, when the betrayal is already in motion. Thug didn't move. He didn't yell. He just stared, eyes cold like a storm about to break. Duke was the first one to react. He slammed his fist down so hard on the table that the glasses jumped. Bro, tell me you're not serious. Tell me you ain't the one that's been talking to them people. His voice cracked somewhere between rage and heartbreak. The man in the corner, his name barely whispered now, kept his head down. His leg was shaking uncontrollably. It wasn't like that, he whispered. I swear. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Thug leaned forward slowly. So it's true. He asked, his voice calm but sharp. Okay? Like a blade cutting through the air. I didn't, the man started, but Thug cut him off. So it's true. Everybody in that room felt the air disappear. This wasn't some random rumor. This wasn't an online conspiracy. This was real. Right here. Right now, someone in the back started cursing under their breath. Another person quietly got up, pacing the floor like they were trying to wake up from a bad dream. Ghana's old manager grabbed his head like he was trying to hold it together. How long? Thug asked quietly. How long you been talking to them? The man in the corner wiped his face with shaky hands. Months, he whispered. But it wasn't like that. I swear, I didn't give them everything. They said they already had info. I just filled in some blanks. The sound of someone punching the wall echoed. Duke was shaking. Filled in blanks. Filled in blanks. Bro, this ain't no game. People's lives on the line. This man fed us, looked out for us, put us on, and you out here filling blanks for the feds. The man buried his face in his hands. They had leverage. They knew about the charges. They knew about my cousin. They said if I didn't talk, they'd take him down. I didn't have a choice. Thug didn't flinch. His jaw tightened and the room grew colder. The lawyer tried to speak, but Thug raised his hand and shut it down without a word. You had a choice, Thug said finally. You always had a choice. Outside, fans still had no idea what was happening behind those walls. But social media was on fire. Screenshots, voice notes, fake leaks, and real whispers were flooding every corner of the internet. Some people were convinced this was all cap. Others were already saying, I knew it was him. Nobody really knew what was true. And that's exactly how the feds wanted it. Inside. The betrayal was unraveling layer by layer. They said you was the one who told them about the private sessions. Thug continued. They knew the times, the places. They knew when I was going to be somewhere before I even got there. And you think that's just blanks. The man tried to speak again, but Duke lunged forward. Security had to hold him back. Let me at him, Duke shouted, voice cracking with rage. He ain't family no more. He dead to me. He dead to all of us. People were crying now. Not from fear, but from heartbreak. This was someone they grew up with. Someone who had shared meals, laughs, secrets, plans. Someone who had been there when Thug built everything. The lawyer finally stepped in. Listen, we can't let emotions make things worse right now, he said firmly. This isn't just betrayal. This is federal. If they got him talking, they might have recordings. Messages. We need to think carefully before anyone makes a move. But Thug wasn't thinking about legal strategy. Not right now. He was thinking about every moment he had trusted this man. Every time he let him into rooms nobody else was allowed in. Every late-night conversation. Every word that was now in some FBI file. Then the twist nobody expected came in. A burner phone in the house started ringing. Nobody claimed it. It wasn't Thug's. It wasn't the lawyer's. Duke picked it up, glanced at the number, and his face went pale. "Bro? It's them," he whispered. The room went silent again. Thug motioned for him to put it on speaker. A voice came through. Calm, collected. No emotion. "We know who's in that room," the voice said. "And if any of you think about making a move, we'll make sure everything goes public. Every message. Every file. Every tape. This is bigger than all of you." The call ended. Nobody said a word. Thug sat back, fingers steepled, staring at the man who had betrayed him. "You brought them in here," he said slowly. "You let them inside the family." Tears rolled down the man's cheeks. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. "I was just trying to protect myself. And in doing that," Thug replied, "you destroyed everything." Outside, black cars were moving through the streets like shadows. Helicopters had started circling above certain areas. The timing wasn't random. The feds had been waiting for the perfect moment to tighten their grip. Back in the house, the energy was fractured. Some people wanted revenge. Others wanted to disappear. And Thug. Thug wanted answers. "What did you give them?" Thug asked again, voice low. "Tell me everything." The man took a shaky breath. "I gave them schedules, flights, some names. Nothing big at first. But then they started asking about the warehouse, about meetings, about who handled what. I didn't tell them about the money, I swear. Just enough so they'd leave me alone." Duke laughed bitterly. "Just enough." "Bro, that's everything." Someone else spoke up from the corner. "You realize they've been 10 steps ahead of us this whole time because of you, right? Everything that went wrong, every raid, every leak. That's on you." The man's hands were trembling. He whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over, like it was supposed to fix anything. Thug finally stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look angry anymore. Just cold, distant. Like he was already somewhere else in his mind. "Get him out of my sight," he said to security. As they dragged the man out, Duke punched the wall again. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Nobody said a word. Outside, the rain started falling. Light at first, then heavier. Like the sky itself knew what was happening. Thug stood by the window, staring at the dark street. This wasn't just about one person talking. This was war. It's about one person talking. This was war. The lawyer came up behind him. "If he's been working with them for months," the lawyer said carefully, "they have more than we thought. We're not dealing with rumors anymore. We're dealing with a setup that's already in motion." Thug didn't respond. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an unknown number. It read, "You're next." He locked the screen without flinching. In another part of the city, the man they dragged out was sitting in the back of an SUV. 2 figures sat beside him. They weren't well. They weren't feds either. They were something in between. People who played both sides. And the man whispered the same words again. It wasn't supposed to go like this. Back in the house, Thug turned around to face everyone. "We got 2 options," he said slowly. "Fold or fight. And y'all know me. I don't fold." Nobody knew it yet, but this night was about to get even darker. Because when the streets find out who the rat is, silence never lasts long. This was no longer just a leak. It was a war inside the family. And every war has casualties. The rain kept falling, steady and heavy, tapping against the windows of that house like a ticking clock. Time was running out. The truth was already out of the bag, and there was no putting it back. Thug stood there for a long moment, eyes locked on the streetlights outside, face unreadable. Everyone in the room was quiet, almost afraid to even breathe too loud. They knew something had shifted. This wasn't the same Thug they'd been around hours ago. This was a man who had just felt his foundation crack. Duke broke the silence first. "We can't just sit here, bro," he said, his voice low but shaking. "They already moving. They watching everything. We can't just let this slide." The lawyer shot him a look, but Thug lifted a hand. "Nah," Thug said quietly. "He right?" Someone else from the crew spoke up, a younger guy who'd been quiet the whole night. "But if we make the wrong move, they'll use that against us. This ain't just streets no more. This feds. They already playing chess while we still stuck on checkers." The words stung, not because they were wrong, but because they were true. Thug turned slowly to face the room. "This ain't no time to panic," he said, voice calm but firm. "They've got someone on the inside. Cool, now we know. What they don't know is, they ain't seen everything yet." Duke stepped closer. "So, what you trying to say?" "I'm saying," Thug replied, "if they want to play this game, we play it smarter. We find out how deep it goes. Who else took in what they really got, and then we flip the board on them." That was the first time that night the energy shifted from panic to something else: gold, calculated focus. But while they were making plans inside, outside the city was on fire. Not literally, but online. The name of the man who had betrayed them wasn't public yet, but the clues were leaking. Fans were analyzing every photo, every video, every single detail like detectives. Conspiracy threads exploded. Some people were making wild guesses, others claiming they had inside sources. One voice message started going viral on Twitter and Instagram stories. In it, a man's voice said they already got 2 more people lined up. While ain't ready for what's next. The rumor mill was working faster than anyone could control it. And that was part of the Fed's plan too. Make the streets turn against itself before they even step inside. Back inside the house, Duke walked up to Thug. "You know what this means, right?" he said quietly. "Once that name gets out, they gon' come for him, not the feds. The streets." Thug looked down at the floor. "Yeah, I know." The lawyer stepped forward. "And that's exactly why we need to be smart. Anything that happens to him now gets tied back here. They'll use it to bury everyone. You think they ain't already trying to do that?" Thug replied. His tone was sharp, a mix of anger and exhaustion. Then, out of nowhere, the front door buzzer went off. Nobody was expecting anyone. Security rushed to the monitors. 2 black sedans were parked outside. Nobody stepped out. Just running engines. The lawyer's eyes widened. "We need to move," he said. Duke's hand instinctively went to his waist, but Thug raised a hand. "No," Thug said. "They want us to panic. We don't move, stupid. Not tonight." The crew held their breath as the buzzer went off again. And then, silence. The cars backed up slowly, disappearing down the street. The lawyer exhaled. "That's not random. They're watching." Thug nodded. "They've been watching. Long before tonight." Meanwhile, in a parking garage across town, the man they dragged out earlier was pacing back and forth, soaked in rain. The 2 shadowy figures beside him didn't say much. They didn't have to. They were middlemen. The kind who didn't work for the feds directly, but fed information both ways for the right price. "They gonna kill me," the man muttered. "You don't understand. They're gonna kill me." One of the figures finally spoke, voice cold and calm. "They won't kill you. Not yet. They still trying to figure out how much you told us. Once they know that, then, maybe." The man clenched his jaw, tears mixing with the rain on his face. "I didn't mean for it to go like this. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could keep them off my back without hurting him." "You can't serve two masters," the figure replied. "You picked a side the moment you opened your mouth." The man leaned against the wall, breathing hard. He had made a choice. Now he had to live with it, or die with it. Back at Thug's safe house, the conversations grew darker. Duke spoke up again. "What if he ain't the only one? What if there's more?" Everyone froze. That was the thought they'd all had in the back of their minds, but were too scared to say out loud. The lawyer nodded slowly. "The FBI doesn't build a case like this on one person. If they flipped one, they probably flipped another. Maybe two." A murmur went through the room. "Then we find out," Thug said simply. "Everybody in this circle getting checked. No exceptions." The way he said it left no room for debate. Someone from the corner of the room, a young producer, spoke hesitantly. "What if they're already listening right now?" Everyone went silent. "Don't trip," Thug said, looking around. "They probably are. They've been listening. But what they can't hear is the moves we don't say out loud." The lawyer frowned. "You're thinking of playing their game back at them?" Thug's eyes narrowed. "Nah, I'm thinking of flipping their whole board upside down." While the crew discussed their next steps, a new post dropped online from a mysterious burner account. It had a blurry photo of a man sitting in the back of a black SUV. Caption: "The one who flipped. Atlanta knows." Within seconds, the post spread like wildfire. Bloggers jumped on it. Fans dissected it. Some denied it, saying it was edited. Others claimed they had known the betrayal was coming. Hashtags started trending. This wasn't just a leak anymore. This was a public execution of a reputation. Inside the house, Duke's phone started blowing up. Messages, calls, voice notes. "It's out," he said, eyes wide. "They know." Thug didn't react immediately. He just stared at the wall, jaw locked. Someone whispered, "It's over for him." Duke added, "Nah, it's over for a lot more than just him." The lawyer put his hands up. "Listen, everyone needs to calm down. Once the streets get a name, things move fast, too fast. We need to control the narrative before somebody else does." But it was too late. Outside, groups were already gathering in certain neighborhoods. Faces familiar with the street's code knew what was about to happen. When someone breaks loyalty at that level, the reaction isn't quiet. Inside, Thug finally spoke. "He made his choice," Thug said softly. "Now the street's gone, make theirs." A few people in the room exchanged uneasy looks. It wasn't just about him anymore. Once blood is drawn, it spreads. Other crews start picking sides. The media twists the story. The feds tighten their grip, and the streets get messy. "We got less than 24 hours before this gets out of control," the lawyer warned. "After that, nobody's safe." The younger producer swallowed hard. "So what do we do?" Thug looked at each person in the room, eyes steady. "We find out who else is talking. We cut the snakes out, and we make sure they never get a second chance to do this again." Outside, somewhere in Atlanta, the man who had betrayed him sat in a car, heart pounding, knowing the city was no longer safe for him. Inside, Thug's people started making calls. Old connections. Quiet corners, whispers. This wasn't just a reaction anymore. It was a plan, a dangerous one. The storm had officially turned into a war, and by the look in Thug's eyes, he was ready for it. But what nobody in that house knew yet was that the betrayal went deeper than one man, and the next blow was already on its way. The city had a strange silence in the early morning. Atlanta was wide awake, but quiet, like the moment before thunder. In certain corners, people already knew something big had happened overnight. Whispers in barbershops, late-night diners, parking lots, and dim studio basements. A name had leaked. And once a name leaks in the streets, there's no taking it back. Thug sat in the same room, barely having moved all night. Empty cups were scattered on the table. Ash flicked on napkins, faces around him tense. Nobody slept. Nobody even tried to. They all knew the next 24 hours were going to shape everything. Duke walked back into the room with his phone in his hand. His eyes were cold, voice low. "They already put a price on his head," he said quietly. 3 different blocks token about it. And they not whispering either. Blocks token about it. And they not whispering either. The younger producer exhaled sharply, looking around like the walls were closing in. "This is gonna get real ugly, bro. Fast." Thug didn't answer right away. He just stared at the flickering light over the kitchen counter. "That's what betrayal does," he said softly. "It don't just break trust, it burns everything around it." The lawyer leaned forward, tired but sharp. "Listen, this can't turn into a street war." That's exactly what they want. They're watching every single move. Anything happens to that man, they'll use it as proof. Conspiracy, retaliation, everything. They'll build a bigger case. Duke shook his head. "You don't get it. The streets already made up their mind. This ain't something you can control with a lawyer." The lawyer's voice rose a little. "I don't care about the streets right now. I care about keeping everyone out of prison. They're baiting you." The tension between the two men was thick. Thug lifted a hand, shutting it down. "He's right," Thug said to Duke. "They watching everything. Every phone. Every car. Every face." Then he turned to the lawyer. "But Duke right too. I can't control the streets. Nobody can." The room fell silent again. Meanwhile, in a rundown motel on the edge of town, the man they were talking about sat on the bed, phone in hand, shaking. He had 2 burner phones in front of him. One from the people who promised him protection. The other with messages that made his blood run cold. "You can't run." One message read, "Atlanta talks." He turned up the volume on the TV just to drown out his own heartbeat. In the corner of the room, a duffel bag sat half-zipped. Clothes, cash, and a gun inside. He was trying to figure out whether to stay and face it or disappear before sunrise, but disappearing from this kind of heat wasn't simple, especially when the name was already echoing through neighborhoods like smoke in the wind. Back at Thug's safe house, phones kept buzzing. Calls from old friends, label people, random bloggers, even fake insiders trying to offer information. The noise was endless. Thug finally snapped. "Shut all that off," he said sharply. And just like that, silence fell again. Duke leaned against the wall. "You know what's crazy?" he said slowly. "The one person nobody ever suspected is the one who did it. He was family. He was right there with us the whole time." Thug didn't answer. He didn't need to. They all felt it. Betrayal hits different when it comes from someone who shared your table, not your enemies. The lawyer tapped his fingers on the table. "We need to move smart. The feds are already watching him. That means they're probably watching us too. They're not going to protect him out of kindness. They're using him to tighten the net around all of us." Duke frowned. "So what we supposed to do? Sit here and let them play us?" "No," Thug said quietly. "We play back." Heads turned toward him. He leaned forward, his voice steady and cold. "He's not the only snake. I can feel it. They don't build a case like this with one voice. They build it with a chorus. That means someone else talking. Maybe 2. Maybe 3. Duke swore under his breath. "Man?" Thug looked around the room, scanning each face. People he had known for years. Some since before the music, before the tours, before the fame. He could feel doubt creeping in like poison. Who else was lying? Who else was feeding them pieces of the puzzle? We find out, Thug said. Every call, every message, we find the trail. The lawyer nodded. We can do that, quietly, but it has to be surgical. One wrong move and everything blows up. Just then, the younger producer's phone lit up. A voicemail from an unknown number. He put it on speaker. The voice on the other end was distorted, like it was run through a cheap filter. You're next, the voice said. Don't think you safe. We know everything. Everyone in the room froze. Turn it off, Thug said. The producer's hands were shaking as he did. Duke muttered, they trying to scare us. Thug shook his head slowly. Nah, they already inside. In another part of town, the motel door creaked open. The man who betrayed them stepped outside, hood up, looking around like every shadow could be the last thing he saw. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. You should have left already. A voice said on the line. I can't just disappear, he whispered. They'll find me no matter where I go. Then you already dead, the voice replied and hung up. He stood there for a second, breathing heavy. Then he threw the phone into the street and rushed to the car. Back at Thug's house, the lawyer pulled out some folders. Look, he said, spreading them out. They're not moving on emotion. They're moving on evidence. They got eyes everywhere. If we're going to survive this, we can't give them anything extra to work with. Duke wasn't having it. So we just sit around like sitting ducks. Nah, bro. That ain't us. We don't wait. We act. The younger producer looked scared. Act how? This ain't like before. This is the FBI. Thug stayed quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Duke. We don't move reckless. We move smart. I need you to call everybody. Not just the close ones. Everybody. If someone else took on, we'll find out before they do. Duke nodded and left the room. The lawyer looked at Thug. You know, if anyone makes a move, they'll use it against you. They'll say you ordered it. They already think that, Thug said with a tired smile. So I might as well make sure, if they paint me as the villain, they paint the right one. The younger producer spoke softly. What if this all falls apart? Thug looked him dead in the eye. Then we fight to the last second. Outside, the sun started creeping up behind the clouds, but it didn't bring light. The whole city still felt dark. Rumors grew faster than the truth could move. Blogs were now running with stories that mixed facts with wild lies. Some said Thug was already arrested. Others said there were secret indictments. Fans didn't know what to believe anymore. Duke returned, phone still warm from calls. Some people ain't answering, he said. Some of the old heads too. The ones who never disappear. The lawyer frowned. That's not a good sign. Thug leaned back in the chair, fingers tapping lightly. Nah, that's confirmation. We got more snakes, the producer whispered. This is falling apart. Thug shook his head slowly. Nah. This is where we see who's real. Meanwhile, in the motel, the man who betrayed him had started driving. He didn't even know where he was going. His mind was a mess. Flashes of the past hit him like punches laughing with Thug in the studio. Late nights in the trap, promises they all made to never fold. And now, here he was, alone, hunted. He looked at his rearview mirror and noticed 2 cars behind him. No sirens, no lights, just quiet. Following double quotes, "Oh no," he whispered to himself. The streets had found him. Back at Thug's house, the lawyer's phone rang. It was someone from the courthouse. His face changed as he listened. They just moved the hearing up again, he said slowly. They're moving faster than expected. Duke cursed. They ain't wasting no time. Thug just nodded, because they think they got everything they need. But they don't. Nobody knew it yet, but the next 12 hours were going to be the most dangerous yet. The betrayal was already public, but the real war hadn't even started. The snakes were still hiding, and the streets were circling closer to their target. What none of them realized, though, was that another leak was about to hit the internet. One that would blow everything wide open. This story ain't just another rumor. This is betrayal, pressure, and a whole empire on the edge. One name flipped everything. One move turned loyalty into chaos. And right now, Atlanta is watching every single step. The FBI isn't slowing down. The streets are heating up, and Thug's camp is split between loyalty and survival. Nobody knows how this ends. Some say the trial's about to expose everything. Others swear this is just the beginning of a much bigger war. What happens to the man who turned? Does the street take him before the feds do? And what if there's more than one snake inside? You can feel it in the air, this ain't over. This is the kind of story that leaves scars, so I need y'all to drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think really flipped? Was it just him, or is this betrayal way deeper than what we're seeing? Hit that like button if you've been following this from the jump, and make sure you subscribe because the next chapter in this story, it's about to shake the culture for real. Turn on your notifications. Stay tapped in, and don't blink because the streets are talking. The feds are listening, and somebody's about to make their next move. Feds are listening, and somebody's about to make their next move.